McAdoo. I'm the city administrator for the city of Santa Barbara. I'm happy to welcome all of you here this evening for our town hall on fire preparedness and water resources in the city of Santa Barbara. And we have a full agenda tonight. And before I start, I'm going to turn it over to Alma Trejo, who is going to do an interpretation announcement.
Translation and interpretation services are available. In-person attendees, please raise your hand if you need assistance before the meeting begins. Zoom attendees, please click Open and select your preferred language on the screen on the pop-up window if you would like to access translation and captioning. Contamos con servicios de traducción y interpretación a través de Wordly. Asistentes en persona, levanten su mano si necesitan ayuda. Asistentes por Zoom, hagan clic Open y seleccionen su idioma preferida en la ventana emergente en su pantalla.
Thank you, Alma. So just quickly want to acknowledge and thank our elected officials who are here with us today. We have Mayor Roundy Rouse and council members Mike Jordan, Eric Friedman, and Kristen Snedden, and a lot of other city staff who are here to support the meeting this afternoon and evening. And obviously, I think this was a brainchild of the mayor, who, when the Los Angeles fires were happening in January, said we need to also have a community conversation. And at that point, we had a number of personnel who were dedicated to helping support the fires in Los Angeles. And so we asked to just have a little bit of time and space so that we could then bring the staff team back together and prepare in a more effective way to have this conversation with the community and talk about some of the work that we've already been doing through the years, and also what else we can be doing and any suggestions or partnership opportunities with our community. So today we're going to do sort of most of today will be hopefully conversation, question and answer. We have a couple presentations from our Fire Chief Chris Males, our Fire Marshal Ryan DiGiulio, and our Water Resources Manager Joshua Hagmark. Give us a little bit of an overview of kind of where we are and the current situation with our fire preparedness, our wildfire preparation, and then also water system responsiveness. And then we'll go into a conversation and open it up for Q&A for most of the meeting this afternoon and evening. So very excited to be here with all of you today, and I'm going to turn it over to Chief Males to kick us off.
Are you going to show that first? Is that going on right now? Once I'm done. Okay. All right. Just double checking. I know I'm on the video too, so I was like, which is first here? Thanks everybody for coming. Thanks to the online folks. I just want to give a little overview of the City Fire Department. I want to talk about the front country of Santa Barbara. I want to talk about mutual aid and just let the community know how prepared we are for wildfire. As people in this community know, we are no stranger to wildfire. If I was to just look across the front country of Santa Barbara, we could talk about the Coyote, the Romero, the Thomas, the Sycamore, and the list goes on as we move west through the Paint Fire, the Whittier Fire, the Sherpa Fire, the Gaviota Fire. We are no stranger to wildfires at all. So I want to give a little overview of the City Fire Department first. What is our normal staffing? And then I do want to talk about mutual aid a little bit. So our normal staffing on the City Fire Department is 29 on-duty personnel per day responding out of 8 fire stations. So our engine companies are staffed with 3 people. Our truck company is staffed with 4. Our aircraft rescue units are staffed with 3 people, and then we also have an on-duty battalion chief or commander of all of those resources. We also have adjacent fire stations that are immediately available to us at any given time. The collaboration that we have among our front country fire and entire county firefighters across jurisdictions, meaning county, Montecito, Carpinteria, is second to none. Okay, we truly respond at any time we're asked with no questions. Okay, you need help, we respond. And so you can be rest assured that not only do we have 8 fire stations, but we really in this county have 37 fire stations, and they are available to us on an as-needed basis at any time. So very reassuring. So one thing that we have in less than 90 days, we've been given a target of May 12th the fire departments are moving all into one dispatch center called the Regional Fire Communications Center. So instead of the multiple fire department dispatch centers that we have throughout the county, every fire station is going to be run under one regional fire center. Okay, what that's going to do is that effectively turns us in to that 37 station fire department. Okay, we will be responding across jurisdictional boundaries as the closest unit available to handle the situation. If a city fire engine is in Goleta, they will take the call, and vice versa. So it's going to be a very efficient and effective means and way of dispatching our fire resources. It puts multiple fire dispatchers on duty 24 hours a day. They're able to handle the dispatching and the management of the incident. Fire incidents become very complex to manage, so it's going to be a really robust dispatch team. So we're looking forward to that. So across the front country of Santa Barbara, and I've just mentioned a few fires, we're in a very unique situation in that this is a south-facing mountain. It's an east-west range, and it's a south-facing mountain that gets sun from sun up to sundown. Okay, what that does is that preheats the vegetation and makes it very receptive to burning at times. So because we've seen our series of fires before, okay, we have unprecedented cooperation across our areas. To see the cooperation between resources, we have our area of the city of Santa Barbara, we call that LRA, Local Responsibility Area. Right above us in the county is what's called the State Responsibility Area, and a stone's throw above that is the Federal Responsibility Area. What we term that is what's called a mutual threat zone. And so what that means is at any given time, a dispatch in that high fire hazard area will involve city fire, county fire, and the Los Padres Forest Service. So we call that LRA, SRA, and FRA. Thank you. So a little bit about mutual aid. Mutual aid, as the name implies, is exactly mutual. It is reciprocal. There are a number of things that I am especially proud of to be involved with in government, and I would say mutual aid is at the top of the list. It is an incredibly efficient and robust system of mobilizing resources on an as-needed basis very, very quickly. When we had the Hasacita fire a number of years ago, within 24 hours we had 3,500 firefighters in the city of Santa Barbara. Okay, that is remarkable. A number of times we've been able to assemble those large amount of resources. If you've ever seen fire engines at Earl Warren Showgrounds, that's the base camp. They are assembled for an incident. A number of years ago, the state of California started a new program, and we call it pre-positioning. And what that does is it allows fire apparatus to move into an area to protect what might happen. Instead of waiting for the fire to happen, they come into the area expecting or anticipating an incident to happen. Coincidentally, the first time pre-positioning was ever used was on the Holiday Fire in Goleta. A strike team of CAL FIRE engines had been moved to Goleta, and they were at the intersection of Fairview and Cayo Real when the Holiday Fire broke out. So pre-positioning is budgeted in the California state budget at $25 million. I believe this last year it was at $80 million. So there is a lot of resources that get moved around to different geographical areas at any given time. So the mutual aid area, or mutual aid system, is designed to take a number of resources from adjacent areas. As the incident gets bigger, we will grab resources from farther away. It's an incredibly choreographed system. In the morning, our shift battalion chiefs put on duty what rigs can go out of town. It's given to the county gives it to the region, and then it works in the opposite direction when an incident starts. The region says, we're going to need some apparatus from Santa Barbara County. It goes to Santa Barbara County, the resources are stood up, and they're dispatched. So our first resources arrived at the Palisades fire just before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's a pretty good reflex time. Okay, so I've had a number of questions about Santa Ana winds. Do we get Santa Ana winds here? The answer is no. Santa Ana winds affect Ventura County southward. It's largely a Los Angeles, Orange County event. However, we get a local phenomenon called sundowners. And sundowners, as the name implies, typically affects late afternoon, evening, but it's from a very different type of weather system. The Santa Anas are a much larger area of influence. The sundowners occur for two reasons. One, high pressure off of Santa Maria and low pressure off of Santa Barbara, which results in a gradient that really affects from Highway 154 west. Then sundowners can affect from the Santa Barbara area to the Santa Maria area. And that gradient affects from Highway 154 east. So when we've had the T fire, that was the Santa Barbara to Santa Maria, or they call it Bakersfield, the Santa Barbara to Bakersfield gradient. When we've had fires out in the western area that were heavily influenced, the Sherpa fire, those were the northwest gradient. So we do see very strong winds, but they are not, in fact, the Santa Ana winds. I want to talk very briefly about water with fires. And I'm not stealing the thunder from Joshua Hagmark, but I want to talk a little bit about how it impacts fire resources. So the water system, the hydrant system in our community is the drinking water system. There are not two different water systems, okay? So the hydrant systems and the water systems were not designed for what happened down in Los Angeles with 10,000 homes being on fire at the same time. So we need to really have people understand that the water distribution system is not designed for a massive fire that like hit the Palisades area. However, firefighters going into wildland fires know this. They know the demands that are going to be placed on the water system, and they can react accordingly. Additionally, we bring things like water tenders in. We'll bring 3,500-gallon water tenders into an incident, and that sole job is to replenish water on fire trucks. So I want to very quickly digress for a second. I've been asked a number of times about the water distribution system and why can't it supply hundreds and hundreds of hydrants at the same time. And so what I'm going to do really quickly is take you to your own houses. Okay, coming into your house is a water line that's probably about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. That water system, maybe 1 inch, but that water system is designed to have maybe a faucet on, to have maybe a shower on, to maybe have some drinking water on. It's out of the faucets. But we've all been in the shower when somebody has flushed the toilet and you feel the pressure drop, okay? Your house system is not designed to have all the sprinklers on, all your faucets on, everything on at the same time. That's not how it's designed. We can take that same analogy and take it to a water distribution system. That's not how the water distribution system is designed, okay? So when we get asked, and Josh will talk about it, upgrade the system. Well, it's as difficult as me saying, I'm going to come to your house and I'm going to put a 6-inch water line in your house. That's a big deal. Why am I bringing up the house? Because in the Palisades and Eaton fires, we had hundreds, if not thousands of homes on fire at the same time. What was happening with those homes? As they're on fire and they're damaged and they're deteriorating, what's happening? The water pipes are breaking. Okay, so a couple days later when you're watching television and you see the burned out house and you see this running water coming down the driveway and coming down the gutter, that's not from the firefighters, that's because the water is running from the house. That contributes to the water supply problem. As homes are being damaged, water is flowing from the houses. So that combats, that causes additional problems. So we did talk a little bit about the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire. We need to understand something about those. They started as vegetation fires. They started as wildland fires, but they became what are called urban or community conflagrations. The wildland portion was done within a very short period of time. But what happened was sustained house-to-house transmission of fire. from not only shrubs in front yards and backyards, but the houses themselves caught on fire, and then that propagated fire to continue through entire neighborhoods. There's 3 fires listed up there, the Palisades, the Eaton, and the Hughes. Can somebody tell me what the one fire, which is very different? That's the Hughes fire. Why? Because that was a vegetation fire. That was a 10,000 acre vegetation fire that started a week after those 2 and burned 0 structures. That was a vegetation fire. The other were major metropolitan house-to-house conflagrations. I've also been asked a number of questions about aviation use. Where were the helicopters? Where were the airplanes? Why weren't they flying? We know that during the Palisades fire, winds were in excess of 70 miles an hour. Okay? Helicopters are limited to about 30 to 35 miles per hour. It becomes incredibly dangerous to fly helicopters in high winds. Fixed-wing aircraft are limited, depending on the aircraft, to between 40 and 50 miles per hour. So there's your answer. The aircraft could not fly the first day of that incident because the winds were too high. Many reasons. Number 1, pilot safety, but 2 is effectiveness of those water and Phos-Chek drops. Okay, and the analogy to that is if you're running your sprinklers at your house on your lawn on a windy day and you look and your driveway's wet and your lawn is dry. That's because as soon as the helicopter goes to drop the water on the fire, the water is gone. Same thing with Phos-Chek. Although it's heavier, it's extremely difficult to have pin placement, precision placement, when you're dealing with such high winds. So you saw them flying the second day. Again, people told me, well, I saw them flying the second day. That's because the winds were down. So just wanted to cover a few things about those fires. By the way, we did send from our department, we sent a total of 18 personnel. And from the county of Santa Barbara, we sent about 100 personnel to the Palisades and Eaton fire. So we had a number of resources that were there. And with that, we're going to take questions later. What's that? Oh, you're going to play, that's right.
We're going to wait till questions until the end.
Okay, okay. But we're going to do the video first. Okay, and then Ryan will be up. Fires in Los Angeles County, the Eaton fire and the Palisades fire, both started as brush fires, but quickly became what we would call urban conflagrations.
A couple factors came into play with the large fires down in Los Angeles. First and foremost was the weather. The Santa Ana winds down there are some of the strongest winds we have in Southern California. So firefighters were already faced with some rough conditions right off the bat due to the ember casts and how far the embers can fly.
The county of Santa Barbara doesn't get Santa Ana winds, but we get a similar local variation of that called the sundowners. And so the sundowners can affect us and we can see significant wind. So it started as a brush fire, then it proceeded into homes. And then we had sustained home-to-home transmission of fire. We had thousands of homes on fire at the same time. And that is extremely difficult to combat. I know the initial focus of a lot of the firefighters that responded to both those incidents was to help get the public to safety through evacuation. People have asked why weren't helicopters flying on this fire? Why weren't aircraft flying on the fire? One of the issues specifically with wildland fires is that they're often accompanied with winds. And winds can be really catastrophic to aviation. So the limitations are helicopters should not fly in winds more than 30 miles per hour, and fixed wing or airplanes should not be flying in more than 40 to 45 mile an hour winds. So as mutual aid, the name implies, it's a reciprocal agreement that allow us to respond across jurisdictions. We have local agreements with our fire departments in the county, we have state agreements, and we have federal agreements. So it depends on where the incident is. We might be going to Goleta on a local mutual aid agreement. we might be going to Northern California on a state agreement. The farthest I've gone is in the Cascade Mountains between Yakima and Seattle, Washington for a fire when I was dispatched on a federal agreement.
So a lot of folks come to us and go, what can we do to improve our property and to give it a better shot at the next wildfire that might move through the city? So a couple of things we're recommending folks to do. First and foremost is defensible space. What is defensible space? It's really things that the homeowner can do to improve their landscape to stop the propagation of fire moving through their property. Another thing folks can do is what we call home hardening. Home hardening is basically taking your existing structure and making it more fortified against the next wildfire that comes through. Things like covering your vent holes with a smaller mesh screen. It's removing vegetation and anything 5 feet away from your house. It really makes it a valuable asset to not only the people living in there, but also the first responders. Firefighters will literally drive down a street in a strike team and they'll look at homes and they'll go, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. That sounds really harsh because what they're doing is they're actually evaluating if they can make a stand at a house or not. They can actually make a reasonable stance at a house that's a standalone house that has home hardening and defensible space and say, yeah, we can actually save that house. But more importantly, it's really to save their own lives too.
Safety on incidents is always paramount. There's nothing more important than the firefighters and the safety of the public. That is our primary job.
Great, thanks, Brian. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan DiGiulio. I'm the fire marshal here with the City Fire Department, and hello to everybody that's online. Excited you're here this evening for a couple reasons. One, we put in a lot of effort in the Fire Prevention Division to try to fortify our wildland-urban interface issue that we have here in the city, and I'm excited to share some of what we're doing here and to also ask you to partner with us to help bolster our community for the next wildfire that comes through. I know watching that video for me personally, and maybe some of you folks out there might stir up some emotions of what we've been through here locally. Unfortunately, we have a rich fire history here locally and have been through many, many, many wildland fires. So what's the fire department doing about this huge issue that we face, which seems to be year-round at this point now? So I'm just going to go over a couple programs that we're doing in the Fire Prevention Division in our wildland section, and hopefully give you some ideas and some encouragement to bolster your own properties in your neighborhood. So the picture on the right is our Community Wildfire Protection Plan. The first word of that document is community, and that's not by mistake. It takes all of us to take on this challenge and to tackle it together. What that document is it's really our guidebook for how we're going to systematically go through some of the high fire hazard areas within the city and treat them and deal with them so that we can make a proper stance for the next wildfire that comes through. Within that document, it really breaks down everything from designated evacuation routes within the city to vegetation management unit areas that we're going to go in and treat. Most of these are public spaces, our park spaces. It gives guidelines on defensible space and home hardening. One of the unique programs that we have here in the city is called the WFSAD, and that stands for the Wildfire Suppression Assessment District. And what that is a special tax district up in the high and very high fire hazard areas in the Riviera. And those property owners pay an annual fee for us to go in and be able to do road clearance in that area, to work some of those vegetation management units I mentioned, and to also offer free chipping for any of the residents there. If you want to do some defensible space work and harden your home a little bit more, you can drag that vegetation out and we'll chip it for you for free. That's been a very popular program, and we're even looking at expanding that program to our coastal and coastal high fire hazard areas, which there's 2 designated areas within the city that lies. After the Loma fire, if you remember the Loma fire, that wasn't that long ago, really opened our eyes to these wildland fires can happen anywhere in our city, and it's not just regulated to the Riviera area. So we're looking into expanding that WFSAT area to the coastal and coastal high fire hazard areas. The 2 things that I really want the public to know and that our office is more than happy to help you with is defensible space and home hardening. It's been proven, and there's many, many papers and many videos you can watch that if individual homeowners do some home hardening and do proper defensible space, your chances of your property and those that are in your property of surviving the next wildfire exponentially grow. So we offer free defensible space evaluations of your property if you give us a call. And we have lots of resources and handouts to give when it comes to home hardening and things you can do on a very simple level and a very extreme level for your entire property. So those two things in combination really help the vitality of your property. As you can see by the other picture on the slide there, I believe that was the Jesusita fire, but you can see that house that has proper home hardening and defensible space, and you can see the entire hill around it is burned away and the property has stood still undamaged. So we have tons of those examples, not just here locally, but all over the western U.S., where those two things coming in combination really are the best chance for lessening property damage. So some of the things, like I mentioned earlier, that the city's doing now in the fire department, like I mentioned earlier, the Wildfire Suppression Assessment District is a very unique program that we get phone calls all over the country asking us how we did that and how do we implement it in our jurisdictions, and we're looking to advance that program. Also, we are fortunate enough to receive some grants, one from the Coastal Conservancy and one from CAL FIRE. What these grants have allowed us to do is, in the first time in the fire department's history, we hired a vegetation fuels crew. So these are young men and women, a lot younger and a lot stronger than I am, that go out every day and they perform special projects of vegetation removal and restoration. It's been a fantastic program. We've partnered with our parks department, so we've gone through most of our parks in the city and the ones we haven't are slated for next year, where we're removing the invasive vegetation, the hazardous fuel reduction loads. We're really lessening those in our public open spaces. So as the city and as a neighbor to a lot of these open spaces, neighborhoods, we're doing our part to really combat the fire issue. So we're asking the community to partner with us and do their part on their properties so that we can come together as a community to really mitigate the next fire that rolls through the city. So very exciting program. This is an hourly fuels crew that works at certain times during the year because of biological resources that need to remain in place. But it's been a fantastic partnership with the Parks Department, and we've been able to really harden some of our open spaces here in the city, while at the same time having proper restoration for the ecology and opening up some trail systems for people that love to use those parks. So I think that's mine, and I'm going to pass it over to Joshua Hagmark from Water Resources. Thank you.
Good evening. I will try and make this quick because I do want to get to the questions. I think that's where the fun begins. So Joshua Hagmark, Water System Manager, or Resources Manager. Been doing this for a long time, so I'm excited to kind of walk you through it. Next slide. One of the things I always like to start off talking about, one of the things that obviously makes Santa Barbara beautiful also makes it incredibly complicated to provide water for. So we got our 4,000-foot mountains to the north, Pacific Ocean to the south, and it has always made a reliable water supply in Santa Barbara difficult. But after years of investment, we've kind of been able to get to that point. But again, as Chief Mail said, the system is not designed for wildfires. It is designed to provide reliable drinking water to this community. And of course, we are disaster prone, which is another element of that. The state recognizes the city's water system as the most complicated system in the state. Rating-wise, they have a 1 through 5 rating. We are a grade 5 most complex water system, and that's treatment and distribution, just to kind of give you a sense of where the city stands. Over the years, this is what we have done to kind of harden those supplies. We were heavily reliant on local groundwater, which there is not a whole lot of, and surface water supplies. And over the last 40 some odd years, we have been diversifying. And that includes, I get a lot of questions, desal is running and providing about 30% of our supply, along with our other mix of supplies, which allows us, even during drought times, to ensure that we have water to meet health and safety needs. Here's a little pictorial. Again, all of this stuff is on our website as well, and I encourage you all to attend or tune into our Water Commission meetings where we get into a lot of details. But you kind of see the city's diversity here. We have absolutely the ability to move state water from Northern California into Cachuma, and of course deliver that from Tecolote Tunnel into Laurel Reservoir, which is located here on the south coast. And then the city owns Gibraltar, Mission Tunnel. All of those supplies are treated at our local water treatment plant called Cater. Anyway, the point here is that we have a very diverse and robust water supply system that is built to withstand large droughts. And of course, when we get into fires, we have water available. The question becomes getting it, we can treat it, but getting there to the fire is where the pipes and infrastructure is just not built for that. And there are many reasons, which I can get into and talk about. A lot of times I hear this question of like, well, it's because of the growth. And I just want to dispel that. This community has continued to grow, and what I want to show here, the blue line, is population growth. And you'll notice somewhere in the 60s there, the water use in the green there starts to kind of flatten out. And I point that out because today's water usage is the same as it was in the 1950s, despite the population being almost double. So it isn't development that's driving this issue. It is a changing climate. It is drought preparedness. It is disaster preparedness that has hardened the city's water supplies. And so I find that we are in a good spot when it comes to drought preparedness. So, quick overview, again, kind of stating that no drinking water, none that I know of, is designed to handle wildfires. Now, reinvesting in infrastructure, we do know reliable delivery of water is very important to this community. This council and water commission have doubled down on that, and we are replacing 6 miles of pipe every year to keep up with that. We've got some pretty large reservoir projects that are on the horizon that we will be taking on. Again, wanting to ensure that that water is available to you during a multitude of disasters that this community could face. We leverage technology. Every asset, pipe, valve in our system is in an asset management system. So we're able, anytime we touch it, we get the maintenance record on it. And we've also got GPS locations of every critical facility and valve in our system. So we can ensure if the firefighters need to go out there, they know exactly where our fire hydrants are, and they know exactly where the valves are. And then emergency preparedness. Similar to fire, we also have something in water called Cal Warren. If we need resources, we are a Cal Warren member. We can call on other water departments across California to request assistance if we needed mutual aid. During a red flag alert, we will increase the amount of storage of water in our reservoirs. Again, it buys us a little bit of time. It doesn't necessarily completely answer the concerns of wildfire, but we do ramp up our operations to make sure that we can support our friends in fire. And with that, I'd like to just kind of get to questions. So I'll turn it over.
I think we have one more announcement. So I'm going to bring up Liliana Encinas from the fire department to just talk about our emergency alerting system, and then we'll open it up for Q&A.
Thank you. Well, we've heard from the city what our efforts are, but it is as important for us to be prepared at home. Individual family preparedness is crucial in all of this. And so there's 4 very easy steps that you can do at home to start your own individual preparedness, which is knowing your risks. Not only knowing your risks, but also what to do before, during, and after a disaster or a major emergency. Making a plan. And with your plan, staying informed. So making sure that you're up to date with evacuations, with shelters, whatever it is that you are needing. The third step is building a kit, making that kit tailored to your family, to your individual needs. And then lastly, registering for emergency alerts at readysbc.org. This is our county's alerting tool, and it's up to date. It's a collaborative effort between the county and all of the jurisdictions. So I highly encourage everyone to stay informed, to register, because if we can't alert you, if we can't find you, we can't alert you. So we have to be registered. Thank you.
And I'll just add a couple comments to Liliana's, just some things from friends and colleagues who were impacted in the Palisades fire and in the Pasadena fire. One of the tips was before you have to evacuate, actually have a checklist of things in your home that you want to take with you during an evacuation. So if you have to evacuate quickly, you pull your checklist out, you just run around the house, grab those things and put them in your car and go. So you don't have to think in the moment when you're panicked. I thought that was a really good tip. And then I've lost my train of thought on the other item, but it'll come back, I'm sure it will. And, oh, I know what it is. Go around your home and take pictures of every room or video. A colleague, she had just gone through a home remodel and had actually videoed, after the remodel, had video of every room in the house. And when she submitted it to her insurance company, they're like, this is brilliant. This is so easy for us to process the claim. So just little things like that you could do to prepare your home and prepare yourself. So with that, we have, all of us are here to answer questions. We'll do probably, we also have a lot of folks online, so we're taking questions online. So we'll do a few questions here. We'll go to some questions online. And I will be your facilitator for the Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please raise your hands and we'll get started. I'll start up here in the front. Hi.
So my question is this: what weak links keep you up at night?
Okay.
What are the important weak links and things that, of course, that you would hope to be able to tackle?
So I'm going to repeat the question until we get the mic so folks online can hear us. What are the weak links that keep our staff up at night in terms of emergency preparedness?
Thanks for the question. The first one that comes to mind is always life safety. I know, and the reality is, every fire eventually goes out. But I worry about human life first. So I have ultimate confidence that our firefighters will be able to get in, do the best job they can. I have incredible confidence in our mutual aid system, our partnerships across the state and the nation. I worry about people not being prepared and not evacuating in a timely manner. We don't want people to wait to be told to evacuate. Everyone has their own individual situation, whether it's a mobility issue, whether it's they don't have a car and they're going to be on foot. Everyone has different situations, and everyone needs to have that plan, like Ms. McAdoo said. The thing that worries me the most is not going into the fire. It's me being worried about when I get there, I can't concentrate on the fire. I've got to get people out. And again, going back to the beginning of the presentation that I said, our primary job is to get people out. And that was the focus of the first responders on the Palisades fire. They had an incredible amount of people trying to get out at the same time they were going in. In my mind, the best fire that I could go to is when I got there and everybody's gone and I can concentrate on the fire. It's life safety, property conservation, environmental protection, and those, the second and third are flipped. But always, first, last, and always is life safety. That's what always keeps me up at night.
Anyone else want to answer?
Thanks for the question. I have 2 side yard gates at my house. One rattles with the regular wind. The other one rattles when sundowners happen. This one keeps me up at night. When that gate rattles, I'm thinking, uh-oh. So why do I say that? Because now, when we don't have sundowners and it's raining outside, this is when I want folks to really engage with some of the stuff Chief Mills mentioned and Liliana mentioned. Sign up for sbc.org, not when that gate's rattling. It's a little late then. Do your defensible space now. Do your home hardening now. Prepare yourself with your family and your kit and your plan. Do all that now so we don't have to wait for that gate to rattle.
Josh, yeah, go for it. Oh, hold on.
Zoom attendees, please add your questions to our Q&A section into the Zoom. Asistentes en línea, por favor, agreguen su pregunta en la sección de preguntas. Por favor.
This will come to no surprise to our Water Commission and City Council, but it's just keeping up with aging infrastructure. We've been We've identified that years ago, and we've been trying to make that investment. We're putting $17 million into pipe replacement every year, and really trying to make sure that those pipes are going to be there when we really are testing them. And the other one that's not a surprise either is just the workforce. It takes, most people don't know this, but it takes between 5 to 8 years to really get a water operator to the point where they understand the complexities of the system. And it's been very difficult in this environment to hold on to those valuable employees. Especially we're such an island, it's hard to find workforce housing here. But those are the things that keep me up at night, and really trying to figure out how do we become that employer of choice, and we can hold on to those folks.
I'll echo Joshua's comments as having staff here to respond, and I think that is what keeps me awake at night, is, making sure that we retain the staff that we have. So I know Councilmember Jordan had a question in the back. I also just wanted to acknowledge the other council members who are here, but Councilmember Wendy Santamaria, who entered a little bit late, but she's back there as well. So we'll wait for the mic to come back to you, Councilmember Jordan. Well, no, because it's so the people online can hear you. So if you,
Yes. Like fun.
It's so the folks online can hear.
I can ask a question. So there's people on the Mesa that are hypersensitive to any fire, not necessarily a wildfire. Could you talk a little bit about the role of VicTrace construction project and how it does or does not play a consequence to our water supply just to fight neighborhood fires?
Yes. So the VicTrace reservoir, which is one that's we're working on its replacement. It is it is the city's largest reservoir at 10 million gallons. It provides about 70% of this community with water, 70% of our residents' water. And we're working currently, just starting on the design for that replacement. And that is a critical question that we're asking. The reservoir size, we know we're going to keep at 10 million, but we're not, but how do we construct it while still maintaining that fire protection? And that's going to be part of the design, and we do have a workshop coming up that we are welcoming the community to come and ask questions. We're going to have the design team there, and so we'll really be able to get into that. But we're just starting design on that, and that is obviously a big component of the replacement of that new reservoir.
I'm going to apologize. That was my mistake. I'm not supposed to let the council members talk at this community meeting for Brown Act purposes. So that was my bad. I apologize. Bad facilitator today. Anyway, other community questions up here.
Hello, my name is Chris Dahlstrom here in Santa Barbara. First, I'd like to thank the fire department. We actually had a fire at our house, and we are back about 300 feet from Ontario Road, right against the creek, vegetation everywhere that we can't control. But I wanted to thank the fire department for first coming out to that home fire that we had, a chimney fire, which you think is small, but it's not. Chimney fires are just nasty things. The 5 engines came back, including the ladder truck on a 14-foot wide driveway. Didn't think they would make it, but they did. The fire was put out in about an hour. Fortunately, we have a 1.5 inch water line that comes back, and I set it up for fire protection as well as water usage. But I want to thank the fire department for responding so quickly, Station 4 especially, and coming out and doing their job. We had 15 fire personnel on site, along with the 5 engines and 1 additional truck. You mentioned there's 29 personnel on call, active every day. Do you feel that's adequate when 15 firefighters or 15 fire personnel were at my house that night and you had the rest of the community? Is there enough fire personnel? And if not, there should be funding to that.
Wow, that's an easy question to answer. Thanks. Set me up. The answer is we actually have data that supports that our 8 stations, our 29 personnel are adequate for the types of calls that we respond to, how many times we get multiple calls at the same time. Because what I'm worried about is the 5 engines that are at your house, and then we get another call up on the Mesa that needs 5 engines. To just shorten the answer, I'm very comfortable with the fact that we have 8 stations. In fact, If you were to look on a map of Santa Barbara, there'd be a lot of people that would go, wow, 23 square mile city, you guys have 8 fire stations, that's a lot. Ventura, similar size city, has 6 fire stations. What's the difference? The difference is that you can't get down the avenue, down Ventura Avenue, down Telephone Road. There's not a lot of straight shots from one end of town to the other end of town. So our fire stations are not set up so much by distance, but by time. So if you look at our Station 3 at 415 East Sola, and you look at our Station 7 at 2411 Stanwood on a map, you go, gosh, these two are close. But it takes 7 or 8 minutes to get to them. So we really are set up for timely response. Our response times are within the national standard, but I'm going to go back to what I talked about earlier, which is regional dispatch. And I think what that is going to do, I know what that's going to do, is it effectively, overnight, when we turn on regional dispatch, is going to move us from an 8-station fire department to an 11-station fire department immediately without delay. There are delays right now between our dispatch center. We have a fire in the city, and we need to physically call the county and ask them to respond into the city. That's going to be done. We're going to all be under one dispatch center. So instead of our 8 fire engine stations in the city, we now have Montecito Station 92 at Cold Springs and Sycamore Canyon available to the whole Upper East Side. We have Station 15 in Mission Canyon, right in between our Station 7 and Station 4. And we have Station 13 on the 4500 block of Hollister Avenue. Those 3 stations are going to be available to us to respond on an initial alarm. So Chris, with your question, sounds like you got 5 engines. You probably had 4 engines in the truck, or maybe you had a county engine. When we move to regional dispatch, it's going to look a little different. We're going to have different color fire trucks on the calls because they are the closest available units to handle the situation. So I'm really confident with what we are actually doing is increasing the capacity and robustness of our department at a very reasonable price by not having to add a fire station ourselves. So hopefully that answers your question.
I think we'll do a couple questions online. Alma, are you going to read those? Oh, Brian. Okay, Brian's going to.
So how many burning structures would indicate that there's going to be a loss of water supply at a home? Is there a plus minus? Is there anything that a resident can do to know if there's this many structures, there probably won't be water supply to my area?
I'll start with, if you are contemplating that question, you should probably need to evacuate. Like, our drinking water system was set up to do multiple structures on the hottest day of the year. Okay, so that's what it was set up for. 2, 3 fires, no problem. It depends on, again, I think Chief Mills is, depends on the size of those fires, how big have they spread to the next house, what's going on there. Each fire hydrant is capable of 750 gallons a minute. Commercial fire hydrants are 1,200 gallons a minute. It doesn't take much to overwhelm the system. So yes, we can handle multiple structure fires. However, if you are seeing fires like that, you probably want to start planning to evacuate, just in case. Again, we are there and we will have water available, but again, for how long and how many fires continue to start after that is really kind of the question. So there isn't a defined answer on that one.
Another question online.
We have another one. What is the city's stance on homemade or professionally installed exterior fire sprinklers? There are a handful of stories out there where people leave exterior sprinklers on and leave hoping it will save property, whether it be landscape or fire suppression. Any advice on that?
Sure. So there are a lot of private industry companies that are gaining popularity with all different types of exterior fire sprinkler systems. So some use just water, some use foam, some are plumbed into existing pools. The fire sprinkler systems that we're used to seeing are interior fire sprinkler systems. They are designed for a room and contents fire, and that
sprinkler head to extinguish that fire. There's over a 95% success rate nationwide for interior fire sprinklers. There is not a lot of data and not a lot of research on the effectiveness of exterior fire sprinklers on homes. Am I going to tell somebody not to put one in? No, that's their prerogative. It's if they'd like to do that. Just keep in mind that if you do leave your fire sprinklers, if you leave your lawn sprinklers or leave one of these exterior sprinkler systems on out of the city's water supply, that's more water pressure that's leaving the system that is going to be on permanently, whether the fire front comes to that part of the neighborhood or not.
Okay, any more questions? Lisa? Hold on, let's get the mic so people online can hear the question as well. She's coming right there.
This is actually a question for you, Kelly. Building codes. One of the things I noticed just visually looking at the Palisades fire was the proximity of structure next to structure. And I've read through our very good community wildfire plan, and if I recall correctly, there is a discussion in there about how there's something akin to spontaneous combustion when you have structures very close to structures. I would like to know if our building codes are addressing this issue. Are they putting appropriate space between structures for defensibility? And how are we going to balance that with the new set of state laws? Yeah, I'm sorry, you're shaking your head. You already know where I'm headed with this,
I already know where
don't
you're
ya?
going with this question, but I appreciate it.
New state laws that are now allowing for things like lot splits and multiple ADUs and eliminating our ability to actually create that defensible space between structures. So I'd like a comment on how dangerous are structures very close to structures, and then sort of how we're going to respond as a city to these new state top-down mandates.
So I think I'll talk, and Ryan can correct me, but we do have different fire codes and different standards for how close structures can be in different, so in the high fire zones, you have to have your structures farther apart. There's different building materials that can be used, all of that. I think it is one of the things we have to look at when we're talking about density and where we're building houses and how close they're together. I mean, that is one of the things that we have to look at is it in the high fire hazard zone? That's why when you look at the housing element and where we have planned for more dense housing, it is in the lower areas of the city closer to the water where there's not as much vegetation, evacuation routes are easier. And so I think trying to be thoughtful in the community planning process about where we plan for density so we're not putting thousands of additional people in a high fire hazard danger zone with very poor evacuation routes that we can't get that many people out of. But you want to answer more about that? Yes.
A couple things. One of the reasons why the Eaton fire was so devastating is that is a very old neighborhood in Altadena, very old California cottages built of old construction and very close to each other. There was I don't know if you remember, in the early 2000s, there was a giant fire siege in San Diego County. What came out of that was the fire code and the building code came together and said, how are we going to build these new houses to be more fire resilient? What came of that was what is known as Chapter 7A in the building code and the fire code. That means any house built from the ground up after 2008 in a high fire hazard area has to be built per these certain standards. So as my picture indicated earlier of that house, it was stucco, right? It was boxed eaves, it was non-combustible roof, dual pane glasses or windows. These are all the things that need to take place now in new structures. As far as the city's stance and the fire department's stance on some development issues, SB 9 was the Senate bill about lot splits, right, and ADU lot splits. We took a good hard look at that in our high fire hazard areas, and because of the life safety impacts of those, they aren't allowed in those areas, right? We don't need the more density there. We don't need the more cars there. We don't need structures closer to each other so that radiant heat can affect all those other properties. So we take a hard, we take a hard look at those, and when we can, and it's logical, and we have the right to do that per state law, we implement those safety factors into the city here.
And a couple things I would just say, if you're thinking about remodeling your home, it's a great opportunity to take advantage of that and actually do the home hardening and upgrading building materials. I know that can be challenging with some of our historic structures in town, but I think there are a lot of companies now that are specializing in, building materials for historic structures, historic homes, where you can sort of still have that same look and feel, but with more modern materials. And I think we will see a lot more of that as we sort of debrief from these fires. I also wanted to mention, if you see weeds, overgrown trees, other things that look like fire dangers, please use SB Connect to report it to the city so we can go out and take care of those, fuel issues throughout the community. We can't be everywhere all at once, and this is the partnership piece. Please report that on SB Connect. Call the fire department, call code enforcement. If you see a house that has a lot of trash, building materials, other things in the yard, please report that so that, again, those materials don't become combustible and create an issue for other properties in the neighborhood. So those are all, just SB Connect is a great way to just easily report those situations throughout the community. So I just wanted to mention that as well. Other questions in here, and then we'll go back to a couple more online. Go for it. Who has the mic? Oh, we got the mic there. Okay, great.
I'm going to keep bothering you.
Go for it.
This might be a question for Ryan. A couple years ago during COVID, the city redesignated or expanded the designation of a high fire hazard area, which went down from Foothill in our area down San Roque, in the San Roque area. As part of that, Joe Poirier, who we worked with at that time, benefits that were supposed to take place with that high fire hazard zone expansion. My question is, and having that recent fire, the fire hydrant closest to our house is about 700 feet away. Typically, it's 350 between fire hydrants. Is the city going to be installing fire hydrants? Josh, you might answer that one. To meet that standard between fire hydrants in residential areas?
I'll tackle the map question. I'll let Josh tackle the water question. So perfect timing for your question. So the state is rolling out new high fire hazard area maps. They've done it with the SRA land, the state responsibility areas. Now they're doing it with the LRA land, which is the local responsive areas, which is where the city falls under. Those maps are actually getting released next Monday, and we are going to be in the review process of that. We just found word of that late last week. So that process is starting again. There will be a public comment portion of that. We will review it. It'll need to get approved by the city, so the maps may or may not change. The way the maps really work is CAL FIRE designates our high fire hazard areas. We, the city jurisdiction, have the right to make them more restrictive, but we can't make them less restrictive than what the state has is going to roll out for us to review. So I can't tell you if the maps are going to change. I don't know yet. There are obviously things that there's a ripple effect if the high fire hazard area is moved or expanded. When it comes to new construction, new development, different standards that might roll down because of that, but that's going to be starting as early as next week. We'll be taking a look at those. So.
Good evening. I'm Matt Ward, Water System Manager, and I'll tackle the second part of that question. So typically, fire hydrants are approximately 500 feet in interval. It always changes, it differs from area to area, but happy to look into that individual case that you have there. But we also work with the fire department in siting all of our fire hydrants. So there's areas that are strategically better to place a hydrant. And there is some threats to fire hydrants. As you know, cars occasionally do hit fire hydrants, so the spacing isn't always exact, but we work closely with the fire department. Hope I answered your question.
I think if you have a specific address, then we can, take a look at that particular area. So make sure we have your address before. Oh, go ahead. Do you have a follow-up question? Yeah. Yes, go for it.
The good thing was during that fire is each of the engines had on truck tanks. So it was 500 gallons, I believe, per truck. So they utilized entirely the truck tanks versus having to pump from the hydrant and using one of the engines as a booster pump. So that was a good thing, and that's why I brought up the fire hydrants, and particularly in the area that we live in, is that has been put inside that high fire hazard area. So that's why I asked the question if there was going to be additional hydrants as part of the plan that was adopted by the city council back in 2022, I believe it was, during COVID.
So I'll expand just a little bit more. You're absolutely right. Every fire engine in the city of Santa Barbara has at least 500 gallons, and some of them have 750 gallons. When we take a fire attack line off of a fire engine, we're pumping around 100 to 150 gallons per minute. So our engineers, our drivers know that they have 3 or 4 minutes of, hard firefighting before they have to think of catching a hydrant. The other thing is you keep in mind is the next engine that comes also has 500 gallons, so they can transfer water from one to another. But typically what happens in a fire is the fire attack line goes out, they start flowing water off of the fire engine, and that engineer immediately is looking for a hydrant. Now, when I say looking for a hydrant, it's not like they're out searching for it. He's going to that hydrant. One thing also is I want to make sure people understand that all of our fire engines have computers on board that show all of the house numbers. They show every fire. We have what's called a hydrant layer. We can click on it and see where the hydrants are. So people have said, hey, I don't have the blue dot in front of my fire hydrant anymore. We're kind of past the blue dots. We have a GIS layer that tells us exactly where they are. So again, when that apparatus is going into your location, the captain is looking at the map, looking, hey, your cross street is such and such. It's going to be the third house on the right. Your closest hydrant is behind you at the intersection southwest corner. So all of that stuff gets done en route. So it's really pretty efficient.
Go for it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Peg Phelps, and I just want to say thanks for these town halls. The previous one with Roy and Kristen was so great, and tonight, too. It's so informative, so thank you so much. You guys are awesome, so thanks. I live up on the Riviera, and I have a couple of Riviera-specific questions. One is, when I walk around up there, which I do extensively, I don't see a lot of fire hydrants, so I'm curious about that specifically. And I'm going to do a tag on as we talk about home hardening. I just went through a remodel of an almost 100-year-old home, so I understand the process of going through the city and the HLC, and great people. But one thing that comes to mind with my home hardening is, especially on the north side of my home, I have preserved all those windows, and I would really prefer them to be dual pane windows, especially on the north side. So I wonder if there's going to be some understanding for that, for these historic homes that we really take great pride in preserving, and it costs a lot of money to do it. I think we're all aware of that. So it would be great to hear your responses to that.
I think on the second question, and I'll let Matt talk about sort of location of hydrants in the Riviera. I think that's a really great point and great feedback, and something that we can absolutely be thinking about as we're talking with the HLC, and I think sort of as the council is setting priorities, and as we're continuing to maybe when the new fire maps come in, that's the time when we have those conversations. Again, I think the single pane windows are great, but there are alternatives that still have the historic look and feel that are dual pane, and so where maybe in the high fire hazard zones, the council thinks about different policies around home hardening. So the other thing before Matt comes up, I just wanted to mention, one of the other things we're looking about is, we all think of Santa Barbara as a very wealthy community, but there are also a lot of individuals on fixed incomes. And so we as the city are looking at potential grant or sort of loan programs for home hardening for individuals who are lower income or on fixed incomes. And so thinking about how we can also support our community in that way. And so that is a priority for us as well, so we can create, sort of equitable access and also safety for our entire community. So I'll let you talk about fire hydrants in the Riviera.
Question regarding fire hydrants in the Riviera. So as Chief Males pointed out, the fire department knows where every single fire hydrant was. They've fought many fires in our community, and they know exactly where they're at. And so we have over 2,500 fire hydrants in the city's water service area, and they're all strategically placed. Sometimes you might not see them too because they're placed out of the ways of traffic, sometimes in some cases the view, so it's easy to miss them sometimes, but if anyone ever has a question about a specific fire hydrant, you can always reach out to us at our webpage online, and we're happy to address that specific hydrant. We regularly maintain all of our fire hydrants too, so we're constantly going out almost daily, definitely weekly, to go and inspect hydrants and make sure that they're accessible. They've got their maintenance updates, and they're clearly marked. And so, anything else to add?
Thank you. Yep, go for it. And then we'll do a couple questions online.
So, back to your question, first of all, thanks for having such an old home and taking care of it. To go back to what these fires were, these two fires that occurred in Los Angeles are Hurricane Katrinas. Okay, these are massive fires that are forever going to change building codes, fire codes, road sizes, turnaround areas, gallons per minute of hydrants in, communities. This isn't a flash in the pan, no pun intended, where we're going to forget about these fires in a year. These have absolutely changed the way that we will, again, building codes, fire protection. These were massive incidents. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see some building code changes, and again, possibly even like HLC changes where we're able to relax and or come up with some different alternatives. Two things, then I'll give it back to you, that I thought about. Chris, I need to go back on your question about fire protection in the city. Started thinking about it. One thing I forgot to tell you is that we have a really comprehensive move-up program. So when we have fire engines committed in the city of Santa Barbara, we have other areas coming in. So we'll have Montecito come cover our Station 2. We have 13 come to Station 4. We have a really elaborate move-up system that when we go regional will be the entire county. So I will not be a bit surprised the next time we have a major incident in Santa Barbara. You might see engine 32. And you don't think much of that, but that engine 32, that's out of San Ynez. And it's now sitting in downtown Santa Barbara. So that is just contributing to, I think, our robustness and ability to handle multiple incidents at a time. One other thing that hasn't come up yet is I want to make sure everyone knows about the Fire Safe Council in Santa Barbara County. We have an incredible nonprofit that is available to us in our community called the Fire Safe Council. It's the Santa Barbara Fire Safe Council. And they are a really, really robust, community-centric wildfire protection entity that does defensible space inspections like we do. They have received our Fire Safe Council, our Fire Safe Council in Santa Barbara County has received 10% of all nonprofit grants have available in California from CAL FIRE has gone to our Fire Safe Council. Their website is outstanding. Just this last weekend, I was on their website looking at home hardening. They have videos. They have, again, the whole menu of things you can do to home harden. Everything from changing the siding on your house to installing vents to installing dual glazed windows. It's all there. It's an amazing website. So I want to make sure that you know that they're an entity in Santa Barbara County. They're an amazing partner. We actually have local firefighters that sit on their board of directors. So it's very collaborative, and we all work together in the name of fire safety in our community.
Are there some more questions online? Great.
We have a few more virtual questions here. There was one question about a community wildfire protection plan. Where is it available? Which is on the fire department's website. But another user mentions that it looks like the CWPP is 4 years old. When will it be updated? Is 4 years old?
So the CWPP is like our gold standard document, like I mentioned earlier. Is 4 years a long time to update the CWPP? Some might say yes. I would say no. And the reason why is because the CWPP lays out a roadmap for us to do the proper work to help bolster our community. It takes a long time and a lot of resources to actually start tackling all those objectives that we have made within that document. It's a very robust document, and that's part of the reason why I say no, is because for us to start tackling all those objectives and give it the validity that that document really needs, it takes a lot of time to do that. So are there certain aspects of the document we could take a look at to update? Of course. There's things like evacuation routes. There's things like different vegetation management units. But to change the priorities from that document would really take even more time to shift some of those resources. So I really think sticking to the current edition is going to get us the most momentum to help bolster our community there.
I have one follow-up to that. Can residents get a presentation to a specific neighborhood about plans that involve high fire hazard adjacent areas, like Ealings Park?
Yes, in bold, underlined. We'd love to come out and do public presentations. Homeowner associations, neighbors of open spaces, you name it, you give us a call. Our wildland folks are more than happy to come out. I'm happy to come out and do as simple as a block party presentation. We've done them in people's living rooms. We're happy to come out and engage the community as much as we can.
Yes, we have one more here. What does the fire department recommend for defensible space and hardening for condominium complexes and mixed-use buildings with restaurant landscaping exterior to seating areas and with street trees, et cetera? So specifically focused on hardening for condominium complexes and mixed-use buildings.
That's good. That's a really good question, because there are definitely some different challenges within larger buildings and multifamily dwellings or apartment complexes. The best thing I would say is to have the HOA, if they have one, to call us, or if they have a facility manager, to call us, so we can go out and we can do an evaluation for them. It's free of charge. We will give them ideas of proper defensible space, what to clear, what not to clear. I have to say this too. People are hesitant to call because they think we're going to go out there and tell them to moonscape their entire property and just put gravel down. That's not the case. We just help you, the homeowner or the property owner or the HOA, come with a proper balance of dispersing what we call a fire ladder so that fires can't grow from the ground up higher. We don't want to bomb out your entire front or backyard. We want it to look beautiful, but we want to work with you to come up with that proper balance. So have that association or have the facility manager there. Give us a call and we're happy to come out there and do that evaluation.
Are there any other questions? Oh, great, in the back there.
This one is a two-parter. Part one is for Joshua and Matt. Below the Loma fire is Loma Alta Road, which has no water line. And below that is a series of dead-end streets with dead-end water lines. In the 600 block of Ortega Street, there's a 100-year-old 6-inch cast iron line that last tested at the hydrant at 498 gallons a minute. The next block over, that's a 4-inch cast iron line. I just wanted to nominate those for consideration. West Ortega is about to be repaved, so it'd be good to get that in beforehand. And then part two, we own a home on San Marcos Pass that we started fire hardening about 25 years ago before it was cool. And everyone thought we were crazy then, and they're like, we live in wooden cabins with chaparral hanging over them. Like, that's the aesthetic we want. What are you guys doing? Then we moved to town, and after the Coffee Park burned, we're like, oh, we should be fire hardening here. So I would encourage everyone in town to not wait for the high fire map or the actual fire to reach them, but to go ahead. And anytime you touch your house, whether you're a property manager or a homeowner, like, do those fire-wise practices. Thanks.
Great tips, and we'll put those projects in the prioritization queue. Other questions? Anything else online? Okay, so I want to just thank our teams who are here. I also want to thank all the staff who worked to set up this town hall tonight, and to thank, City Council for their leadership and continued support of the staff work around fire prevention and water preparedness, and our Water Commission and Police and Fire Commission. So and also I think our law enforcement partners who are here this evening as well, even though you didn't get any questions. We appreciate you guys being here. And then if just any other, the meeting recording from tonight will be sent out. If you're not subscribed to City News and Brief, which is our city e-newsletter, please sign up for that. We'll be sending out a copy of the recording. You can also, on the flyer, there's the QR code. You can sign up for the City News and Brief there as well. And then I think we're going to put it up on the projector screen as well, the City News. Yep, there we go. Perfect. And then that you can get the meeting recording, the additional FAQ document. And please use the city's website. There are a ton of resources there. If you see other resources that you think we should be sharing with the community, please feel free to let us know. We always are looking for new ways to help inform our community. And again, we'll continue this conversation. It is not the first or the last one, as we are all aware, unfortunately, of the beautiful yet sometimes dangerous community that we live in. And so I appreciate everyone being here this evening, and we'll stick around for a little bit if folks have questions or want to chat a little bit further. So thank you all for being here this evening.